Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. It is Tuesday, August 8th, and we're very happy to present to you a very innovative program today that is a collaboration between the Westchester County Board of Legislators, the Westchester County Administration, our professionals in the planning department to try to address one of the issues that has come out of the 2.5 years that we have had of COVID impact in our society. You're well aware that beginning in March of 2020, when COVID hit us, there were certain elements of the society economically that were shut down. And over the course of the intervening months, we've tried to reopen the economy and make it fully functioning again, to try to have as much of normalcy as we can. And that's happened in different areas of business, that's happened in our recreational programs. Where it has really impacted us dramatically is in the area of rental housing, both because we already have a shortage of affordable rental housing in Westchester County and because so many individuals were unable to pay their rent through the period of COVID when they were either lost their job or unable to work on a full basis. So today's program complements some of our other existing efforts, either done by the county or by the state, to address this issue, and in this case, to try to address that portion of it that affects small landlords and, of course, the tenants that live in buildings of a certain size and below. We're going to be hearing from, in a few minutes, our Commissioner of Planning, Norma Drummond, who will outline some of the details of the program that we're launching today. In this room, we're joined by her Deputy Commissioner of Planning, Blanca Lopez. We have with us members of the Westchester County Board of Legislators. Speaking in a few minutes will be the Majority Leader, Christopher Johnson, and the Chair of the Board of Legislators, Catherine Borgia. I should point out we're joined here today as well by the Vice Chair of the Board of Legislators, Nancy Barr, and by Legislator Tyree Woodson Samuels, and they are representative of the 17 members that have been supportive and leadership roles in advancing this program. Then we're also going to hear from Jackie Shaw, who is the Executive Director of IFCA, it's an acronym, in Ossining, that works with people in that community on the issues of affordable housing. So you get a little bit of on-the-ground situation of how this thing will work and how we hope it will help some people that have fallen into sort of a crack in the system and have been affected by the fact that rent has not been paid and therefore improvements in properties can't be made. This program is been turned to an acronym of LTAP, LTAP, and LTAP stands for Landlord Tenant Assistance Program. It is being funded in Westchester County by $10 million that has come from ARPA funds. That's the federal assistance that we've received. The administration originally put a much smaller amount in, and the Board of Legislators saw the potential for this program to be more widespread and productive, and during the last budget process added additional resources so that we have a $10 million fund to draw from for the purposes of this. Now, the LTAP program applies to small landlords who are owning buildings of 8 units or less. Now, they have to maintain rent levels that fall within affordability. And if they are eligible for this program, they can apply for up to $25,000 for repairs to each unit of the rental property. That's $25,000 for repairs to that unit. What's happened during COVID is when people have been unable to pay their rent and the landlords cannot evict and they cannot make any changes to the rent rolls, they have had to put money up for repairs on their own, and many times they won't make those repairs. So this program is going to help bridge that gap and give us a chance to see some of these buildings that are small in nature and oftentimes owned and occupied in one of the units by the landlords, and give them that little bridge that they need to get to the next step. To explain the program in some detail, she'll cover some of the home improvements that are covered under this program, maybe some of the other HUD guidelines. Our Commissioner of Planning, Norma Drummond. She has been a leader in affordable housing efforts and housing rehabilitation efforts for her many years in county government, and we're very appreciative of her professionalism. She helps take good ideas and turn them into practical, implementable ideas. So I give you our Commissioner of Planning, Norma Drummond.
Thank you, George. The housing needs assessment that the county executive, under his leadership, was done in 2019. One of the main things that it identified was that rehabilitation was seriously needed in Westchester. And so we've always considered preservation of affordable housing to be one of the keys of keeping our inventory of affordable housing well in the county. So any opportunity that we've had to expand the resources to make rehabilitation available for our residents here has been really important to us. So under his leadership, we applied in 2018 for a Lead Safe Westchester grant that got us 2 allocations now of $3.5 million each for us to be able to deal with the lead-based paint that's here in the county. And as we've worked with some of the property owners on that program, one of the things we've identified is you go into these homes, and because of COVID and because of the lower incomes of some of the residents, that these landlords have, they've had their tenants for years and they don't want to lose them because they're good tenants. They need other repairs that are done. So it's been great that we have this opportunity now to work with these other landlords to leverage other sources of funds, many of them coming from the federal government and some from New York State, to be able to go into a home and not just say, okay, let's deal with this piece and then we're gone. We're going to go into a home now and be able to say, you need a roof done, you need anything that could be decent, or going to be a safety concern that will make the property decent, safe, and sanitary. Those are our key words. We're not just going in to do paint jobs. We're looking to make sure the property is decent, safe, and sanitary. That also includes accessibility. We have many of our county residents that are aging in place, and we need to make sure that their units keep up with the accessibility issues. So to be able to run this program, we've actually engaged a second rehabilitation specialist in our department. So we're going to make this process as simple as we can. Landlords will be able to reach out to the Department of Planning. There's a main number that you'll be able to call. We'll also have an online a website for you to be able to get information from, and landlords will be able to apply, work very closely with one of my staff who will be able to help them complete the application. We are not looking for tenant information. We are going to make the presumption that if the rent is affordable, then it's likely that the tenants are also of an affordable nature. So we are not looking for landlords to have to worry about collecting data from their tenants, because that's one of the things that we found with the rental assistance program and some of the eviction prevention programs, that sometimes tenants are just so afraid of what's going to happen with their data. Even as we were conducting the Census 2020 efforts, we had homeowners, or not homeowners, sorry, we had residents who were afraid to say to people, I don't want to tell people I live by myself. So again, collecting information from the tenants, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking to help the landlords as best that we can. So they'll apply, they'll be able to work with our staff, the rehabilitation specialists will go out, evaluate the home, all of the health and safety needs that need to be addressed in that home, and then we'll leverage multiple sources of funds that the department now has to be able to help complete the work within that home that needs to get done, to keep it as simple as possible. All right?
Thank you, Norma. And when we close this out, we invite anyone who's interested in the program to contact our Department of Planning. They are the point of contact on this program, so that people who have inquiries, want to know about eligibility standards and so forth, will have a place to go in county government. And we're very happy that Norma, Blanca, and their team will be implementing this program. I should point out that there is a list of HUD, Housing and Urban Development guidelines for rent levels at 60% of AMI, 80%, and 100% of AMI rent levels based on the number of bedrooms in the apartment. And that range represents a target that we have to reach in order to make sure that we're achieving affordability, as Norma said, on each of these different situations. There is an application that will be required of landlords and owners who are interested, and that will be channeled, as I said, through the Westchester County Planning Department. The funds will be dispersed directly to the contractor by the county after a progress inspection has been completed. So it's not just money going out to the owner, it's money going out to that individual contractor entity that's making the repairs and the improvements that have been authorized by this. The response in this program really came as well from the energy of the Westchester County Board of Legislators. And there are 17 members that each represent portions of the county. I've introduced a couple of them. We've been joined by the chair, Catherine Borgia. And having been a legislator myself, legislators are in the community and they hear information back from the people that they represent. Catherine Borgia represents Ossining. Tyree Woodson Samuels represents Mount Vernon. Nancy Barr represents Portchester. Chris Johnson represents Yonkers. Each has a footprint in the local communities and hear about the concerns of whether it's affordable housing or anything else under the sun. So in changing a little bit of the program as I had originally planned, I'd like the chair of the board, Catherine Borgia, to join us here at the microphone, along with Chris Johnson, who's the majority leader, and the other members of the board who are here. I'd invite you to stand here with them as well, so that you can appreciate the work that the Board of Legislators made in making this happen. So, Madam Chairman and Mr. Majority Leader, the podium is yours.
Thank you so much, and it's so nice to see so many friends here with us. We know that having high quality, high standard, not substandard housing is something that we have a tremendous need for in this county. I first got into public service around 2001. I remember discussing it then, and the problem has not gone away in the intervening 21 years. So we are very pleased that we discussed when we were looking at the budget. I happened to be the budget chair last year when we discussed this, and we decided that one of the things we really wanted to encourage and work in partnership with the administration on is to make sure that we addressed our housing needs, because housing, safe, secure, healthy housing is the foundation of every other success that every family in Westchester needs. So we wanted to really boost that up. We were so pleased to be able to negotiate with the administration to add more significant funds to this project. It's one of the things that is one of the toughest parts of the job is negotiating where you're going to spend your resources, but this year we happen to have some resources to spend, so we really wanted to make sure it went to our most important priorities, and we thank the administration and the commissioner and the deputy commissioner for all of the work that they're doing to make this a reality. The driving force on our board was our Majority Leader Chris Johnson, who I think is going to say a few words now. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your leadership during the budget process last year, which really allowed us to have a full conversation about the needs of residents of Westchester and making sure that we push this conversation forward. As the county executive said, when we're in our districts, we hear about what the realities are on the ground. And so since I've been elected, spending time in Yonkers, I've talked to many constituents, and they always say housing, housing, housing. And then they add, I want to stay where I am. I love where I live, but it's becoming a little bit substandard. Things need repairs. Things are falling apart. How can I stay here and have it be affordable? And so then you add on what happened with COVID and what we saw with so many individuals unable to pay their rent, and therefore landlords unable to make the needed repairs to those said properties. And so when you couple the desire for people to stay, the need for affordable housing, and the opportunity to have dollars to really infuse into the community, this just makes sense. The opportunity, the ability for us to give dollars to contractors to do the work, to make sure that our housing is safe and is up to standard, that people can live in, that people can love, that people can continue to nurture, right? There's this concept of people who rent being transient or not caring about where they live, but I can tell you as someone who lived at the same address for 25 years as a renter, that you care, that's home. And so you want to make sure that your home is a place that is comfortable, a home is a place that you love, but also that home is a place that is safe. And so I'm glad to be a Westchester County legislator and have the opportunity to provide people with that safe, happy home. And I'm glad that as we continue this conversation with the commissioner and with the county exec staff, that we'll do that through the chairman of the Housing Committee, Tyree Woodson Samuels Committee, to make sure that these dollars are getting spread throughout Westchester, and we continue to have people lifted up in their homes where they live. And the leadership that we see continuously from our vice chair, Nancy Barr, is second to none, except for our chairwoman, sorry, the vice chair.
Yeah, really nicely there, Chris.
And so I'm just glad that we have this team, because when we put this team together, we really have the opportunity to make people's lives better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we really do appreciate the leadership of the Board of Legislators. Again, Chairwoman Borgia, Majority Leader Johnson, Vice Chair Barr, Legislator Woodson Samuels, and all of the other legislators. This was a bipartisan initiative, so it represents, I think, the common thinking of the members of the legislature and the members of the administration, that we could work together on this and move forward on it. The practical reality is we hear a lot from the grassroots of the community as these programs are discussed. And before we begin with an idea for a program, we understand what the problems are. And we hear that from a number of different sources. We're joined today by Ms. Ronnie Cox, who is one of the leaders of our department of senior programs and services. And she hears that as she deals with the people in senior programs all across the county. We hear that from our friend Joan Grangenois Thomas, who is an elected village trustee in the village of Portchester, and as well a senior staff person for Congressman Mondaire Jones. And whether it is people calling the congressional office to express a concern or what she sees in her own elected responsibilities in Portchester, it comes from the bottom up. And so with that, we learn from the grassroots, and then how it applies in the grassroots matters much in the way we construct the program. With that thought in mind, I'm going to invite Jackie Shaw up to speak. She is the executive director of IFCA in Ossining, and Ossining is one of those communities that has a mature housing stock and is working very, very hard to maintain the housing stock, add to it, and improve it. And Jackie's work on this is exemplary. So let me ask Jackie to join us here and share some of her thoughts as well. Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Again, my name is Jackie Shaw, and I am the Executive Director of Interfaith Council for Action, also known as IFCA Housing Network. That's the IFCA. We are in a nonprofit affordable housing organization. We have 92 rental units. We house over 220 people. Many of them are children. I am thrilled to be here today to talk about the county's newest program, the Landlord Tenant Assistance Program, which will help landlords make improvements to their buildings. This funding will allow for repairs that will prolong the life of buildings, a very big deal in Ossining, as many of the buildings we own are over 100 years old, so a lot of maintenance goes into that. Throughout the pandemic, there have been many programs that help out tenants who are in need. They can't pay rent. There have been all kinds of programs. There have been far fewer programs that help out landlords. So as a landlord, and I know many other landlords in our community, I'm thrilled about this program and what we could do with this kind of funding. The commissioner has been proactive in keeping a pulse on affordable housing providers and has been an incredible resource. The county has been a wonderful partner for IFCA. With county funding, we have been able to continue to fulfill our mission and renovate several of our properties, which has helped IFCA to continue to provide safe, quality, affordable housing, which is our mission. Although landlords have been vilified, in truth, there are many landlords who are decent people just trying to pay their bills and feed their families. For some of these smaller landlords who are dependent on rental income, the pandemic has been devastating. These properties are their livelihood, and they have a sense of pride in their buildings. And the fact that they don't have the funds to repair some of the things they would love to do, it's devastating for them. This program will give landlords the ability to renovate and rehabilitate their properties. Landlords will have funding to get their to-do list done. And I can tell you from experience, the to-do list is a running list. Funding for the rehabilitation and renovation of properties is a positive for landlords, for tenants, for neighborhoods, and for Westchester. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jackie. So as we close out this presentation, we're beginning the process for those landlord owners who are interested in the program. We'll give you the general number for Westchester County Government, 914-995-2000. Ask to speak to the Planning Department, and when you get connected to the Planning Department, Norma Drummond or her designee will be available to outline information about the program, provide documents that you need to complete and submit. And we look forward to working with the local governments in whatever way that is most appropriate so that everybody who needs to know is fully informed of these things. We're obviously going to look to see what kind of success factor we have, and the Board of Legislators, which has an oversight function of the executive branch, will no doubt have the Planning Department folks come in due time, report on the program, the progress of the program. We head for another budget year very soon. It seems like it comes so quickly, but within less than 90 days, the administration will be putting a budget together for the year 2023. Now, this money has been allocated from ARPA money. We have ARPA money that can be used in the 2023 budget year as well. If it looks as if we're off to a good start, then part of that budget process will determine how much can be funded for this purpose. I do just want to leave you as we close this off with three basic concepts. The first concept is cooperation. There's a general sense when people look at government, and they oftentimes confuse the words politics and government. They say in politics, when in fact what we're doing is dealing with government issues, is that there is no cooperation, there is nothing but constant conflict. And some folks would prefer for it to be that way. This program was developed and designed with the cooperation of two branches of government, the executive and the legislative branch. It was done with the cooperation of people who represent not just two, but three different political parties, Democrat, Republican, and Conservative. And it was done with a sense of cooperation between those who care about what happens to tenants, but understand that we have to care about what happens to landlords. Now, that may seem to be something that isn't the norm of the narrative in our body politic, where we're at each other's throats. We are looking at a program that we hope will work, and it will work because there's cooperation in its construct and in the way we intend to implement it with landlords and tenants together looking at something. The second thing is how short-term versus how long-term we view issues. There's a concern that when you spend money from a program like ARPA, that it could be used for things that are short-term and consumable. In this particular case, when you make a capital improvement to a livable unit, I think Chris made this point, but it bears repeating, it has a value for multiple years to come. That unit, as habitable, will continue to provide housing for people in the short term and in the midterm. How long depends on the circumstances, but if you put a new roof on your house, this is not a consumable thing that you have to do every other year. This is something that will last some length of time. And it's important to understand that's how we view using federal ARPA money, for things that will have a benefit that will last over a period of time, not something to merely be consumed in a short period of time. There may be exceptions to that when we're talking about providing food security, but in general terms, we look at these things as ways to help improve things over the long haul. That's been part of the way we've approached capital projects in this budget, in this government. And the third important theme to take out of this, it's one program, it's one element of multifaceted things we're doing in this government, between fighting COVID and monkeypox to paving roads. We look at government not as the devil nor as the angel in the world that we live in. There are people who believe that government should be the all-consuming entity, and some that believe government should be shrunken and strangled, and that the government is the problem. And it is neither. It is a tool to address a problem. This tool takes into account the role of the private sector, the role of the individual landlord who owns a building and is trying to maintain it to provide what is, in other terms, a private sector transaction between a tenant and a landlord. But the pivotal central role of government is to help what would otherwise be a private sector structure that, because of a pandemic, doesn't work the way it could work. So government doesn't step in to take control, and we don't kill government to satisfy some ideology. We use government as a tool to address a real-world problem. That problem exists on the streets of Ossining. That problem exists on the streets of Portchester, but not just there. It exists in parts of Larchmont. It exists in parts of Briarcliff Manor, and in Peekskill, and in North Salem. So what we're trying to do is to work practically across party lines, across governmental lines, between the private sector and the public sector to solve a problem. And that is what LTAP seeks to do. Hopefully, we'll be satisfied with it, it'll work. And if it doesn't, we'll assess where we are. We'll make changes, and we'll determine what is the best way to move forward. We will not be shy in taking action, and we will not be shy if our action needs to be recalibrated. That is, to me, what the purpose of government is, help solve problems that we face every day. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. We look forward to talking to you in the days to come.